Hi, John.
Hey, Sue. How are
How
you?
you doing?
I'm good, thank you.
Which office are you from, John?
I'm from Westchester office.
Okay, great. Thanks for joining today. I was afraid I was going to be the only one. Hopefully we'll get a few more on. Give it another couple of minutes.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, Sue.
Melissa, how are you?
Good. A bunch of us just came from another training, so everybody's going to be hopping on soon.
That's okay. Yep, I see a couple of people jumping on. That's great. See Kira, Chantel, Anne. Give it another couple of minutes. Still a few people coming on, so we'll give it another minute or so. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. It looks like there's about 14 people on, which is great. I had this moment right before I logged in thinking that, what if I'm the only one on? I pulled some things together for you and I thought, what if I'm the only one on? So I'm glad to see some faces. I'll introduce myself. I'm Sue Manning. I'm an agent in the Devon Wayne office. I've been an agent for 4 years, just past my 4-year mark. And I'm primarily work as a buyer's agent on the Aisha Clay team. Just little backgrounds. I took Ignite 3 times when I was a new agent. I think it's an absolutely fantastic way to get ideas. You get to hear what other agents do, their little tips and tricks. You know, it's not always by the book. So you get to hear some other things besides the kind of like KW, like this is the way to do it idea, which I think is great. I was Rookie of the Year in the Devon Wayne office my first year. I've taken Bold 3 times. I think Bold is absolutely a fantastic program as well. I took it online. I didn't like it online as well as in person, but hopefully next year they can start some in-person trainings. And I think if you get the chance to take it, it's super valuable. And I'm now doing about 9 million a year in sales, between around 25 sales a year. And for 2021, as of March, we already have more than half of what we did last year, either sold or pending. So we're super proud about that. I know that you were supposed to watch the video before you log in. If you got a chance to watch the video, it did have some valuable things in it. The woman who did the presentation, I thought, did a really good job, and she had some, you know, good ideas and tips and tricks. Did anybody have any questions about anything in the video before we get started with kind of my tips and tricks? No? Okay, that's fine. I will say, you know, just raise your hand or chime in at any time if you have any questions. I want to make this, you know, really interactive. Just pick my brain and ask all the questions that you have. And if I don't have an answer, maybe someone on the line will have an answer. Are most of the agents that are on the program newer agents, or are there some experienced agents on the call as well?
4 weeks.
4 weeks, yay.
I'm pretty new too.
Okay,
Myself
Great.
as well.
okay. I see some of you look like you might have had a whole nother career before you started in real estate. I did as well. I'm a CPA. I spent 25 years in the accounting industry. I was at a pretty high level when I decided that I didn't want to be chained to my desk anymore. I wanted to do something that was a little bit more people oriented, and maybe some of you can relate to that too. So, you know, I didn't have a traditional sales background. I learned on the job, and boy, have I learned a lot. And really when I started, because it was a whole different career change for me, I was just like a sponge. I just absorbed everything I could possibly absorb. It was one of the reasons that I joined KW, that they had so much training. I knew that I would have, you know, people that I could rely on, ideas that would be communicated to me. And like I said, I just took as much training as I absolutely possibly can, because after you get busy, it's a little harder to find time to fit all of that training in. So while you're new, now's the time to really, really focus on as much training as you possibly can get. Get as many ideas as you can. There's no one right way to do it. I think everybody's got ways that work for them. What works for me might not work for you. But I think it's important to get as many ideas as you can, and then you can kind of mesh those ideas into your own systems. So that's one of the great things about Ignite. You get to hear from a lot of different agents. So we're going to go through a couple of things, really quickly. Of course, your main job as a newer agent, especially, is to cultivate leads. And we're focusing mainly on buyers, but that could be cultivating sellers' leads as well. And what are some of the ways that you guys are finding to cultivate leads or want to try to cultivate leads?
Well, it begins with our database and our sphere of influence.
Yep, it does. And I know that when you are coming from a different background, you might think, well, people don't really see you as a real estate agent. For me, I'm like, they see me as a CPA. They see me as, a high level person in the industry. Like other people that I knew there were also high level. Well, I can tell you that one of my old bosses called me this year and said, I want you to list my $1 million home. So that's something that was in my mind. It wasn't in their mind. They see you as a capable person, and you can be capable in a variety of things. If they know you and know that you're a hard worker, then they're going to be open to using you as a real estate agent. And I think it was like a great conversation that I had with old coworkers and friends when I switched careers, because everybody was like, oh my God, that is so cool. I'm so proud of you for making that change. And you didn't have to use a script to talk about it. When you called them, you could just, when they ask you what's going on with you, say, I changed careers. I just got my real estate license, and I'm, super excited about it. And I'm, doing this and doing that, even if you have to make up what you're doing. But, it takes some people some time to see that you really are doing it and are getting successful in it. But other people that know that you're a successful person just assume that you're going to be successful no matter what you do. So don't use your own limiting beliefs to think that they're not going to see you as a capable real estate agent. So that's one thing I would tell you. But other places that you get leads are, I wrote down a few things. Like I've had good luck with like clubs, like book clubs, that kind of thing, where people, kind of see you regularly. Everybody is always asking, they don't see you every day. So they're always asking what's going on with you. And it's a good chance to talk about, what you're doing real estate related. And, I think that's a good way. If you belong to a gym, if you're going to a gym in person, you're going to see the same people over and over that come at the same time. I think that, that's a good place to casually strike up a conversation with people. Any kind of class where you're going to see people over and over, I think is good. We're going to talk a little bit about open houses. I think that can be a really good way to make contacts of people who are interested in real estate, interested in buying or selling, potentially both. We're going to talk a little bit about my tips and tricks there. I think you should absolutely have all of your profiles online updated. So update your Zillow profile, update your Realtor.com profile. You just never know when somebody who just doesn't know a real estate agent is looking for help. And for one thing or another, they may just focus on your profile. And then I would also kind of interview lenders and find a lender that you're comfortable with, or 2 or 3, that can give you referrals. Some lenders will buy referrals for the agents that they work with other lenders just have kind of such a large scope of business that referrals kind of come their way and they may help you. So I would definitely interview people in the industry that might be able to give you referrals. Has anybody else found anything that's really working for them? I'm a big fan of like mini scripts. And if you're hesitant, you talked about calling your sphere. If you're hesitant to talk to somebody that you haven't talked to in a long time, just open the conversation with, hey, I was scrolling through my phone. I happened to see your number and I've been thinking about calling you for a long time. I just haven't taken the time to do it, but how are you doing? You know, just say, I was scrolling through my phone and saw your number, or I was going through my, list of contacts and I keep seeing your number pop up, but I just haven't taken the time to call. How are you doing? I've had really good conversations with people that I haven't talked to in 5 years or more, just by using that script. To me, it's kind of a natural, like I saw your number, I keep seeing your number, I keep thinking about you, but I just didn't take the time to do it till now. How's it going? I think that's just, it's so much better than, hey, this is Sue Manning. I'm a real estate agent with Keller Williams, and I wondered if you are interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Just say, I've been thinking about you. I just now took the time to call. How's it going? And people are like, they like to hear from you. They like to talk about themselves and they like to hear what you're doing. So I think that's a good script for somebody that you haven't talked to in a while.
So I have, this is Ann Byer. I've been in the business since 2010.
How are you?
Great. How are you? Thank you
I'm doing well.
for teaching. But I have to share, I know that everybody has to find their own path to what you're comfortable with. But years ago, I started doing the Buffini thing. So Buffini has a little item of value you send out every week, every month, and note cards, and you're supposed to, whatever, doesn't matter. I don't do it all. But I have to tell you, I got in the habit a while ago. At the end of each month, I tally and all of the sales in each school district, and I send it out. Now I'm doing it electronically. It's quite easy. But I do send mailings, and I have someone, when you first get in the business, you're supposed to like brain dump everyone you've ever met in your life and put them in your database. And I did that. And there's someone I have not seen for, I don't even know. I want to say 15 years, have not seen her, but I have been sending information. She just called me to list her, let's call it $700,000 house. And she was like, thank you so much for sending me that. Yet I know there are a lot of people who would say, I have friends who are like, don't send me that. I don't want it. Don't send it. Like, that's dumb. I hate emails.
One of my worst days in real estate was when my best friend said to me, this is why people don't like real estate agents. Because I was sending her stuff.
I know.
Those people are in the minority. If you're sending them something interesting, most people are going to appreciate it. They may not reach out to you, but they're going to appreciate it and think about you when the time comes, right?
Right. And this mailing, I just come across people all the time like, that's stupid, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's the core of my business. I tell you, you just keep dripping on them, and they eventually come
Is
right.
that email or physical mail?
I do physical mail, but I also, I do email. And now we have like command. It's so easy peasy. You don't have to tabulate anything. You just send them that market update thing, and it's
yeah.
all.
I agree with you. I hear agents talking about kind of cleaning out their database. I would just never do it. If I had somebody that I met at an open house 5 years ago and they're still receiving my emails, why not just leave them there? You never know. Doesn't hurt anything, and it's not costing you anything if you're emailing them.
Absolutely. Anyway,
thanks for that.
Story.
Appreciate that. Anybody else? It kind of brings us to the plan your day in the notes for this meeting. They recommend that you do add 10 new contacts to your database, speak to 10 people in your database, write 10 handwritten notes, and preview 10 homes for sale. I think adding to your database is super important. Add anyone that you can think of to your database. Like I just said, you can put them on an email campaign very easily these days. It won't cost you anything. Add them to your Facebook page so that they, I put a lot of things on my Facebook page that aren't like buy my home. They're not buy my listing, use me as your buyer's agent. I'll put a lot of things on my Facebook page that are kind of like lightly around real estate. So they know that I'm doing real estate, but not really, use me to buy your home, use me to sell your home, that kind of thing. So just maybe something fun around real estate, or we do giveaways on my team. We do all kinds of client appreciation activities on my team. So I try to Facebook, like everybody on Facebook that I possibly can, so that they can see those things that we're doing too. And, you can do it for free. You can do it for fun. There's always, real estate memes out there. Tell a funny story about, when something that you saw in a house, trying not to give so much information that if their neighbor sees it, they know what house you're talking about and they go to tell the neighbor. But, you can just do things about your daily activities on Facebook so people know that you're working in the industry. I think that for me, that's the purpose of it, to show people that I actually am working in the industry. So we talked about adding to the database, speaking with people in your database. We already talked about, just super important to touch base with people. Handwritten notes, I think, are really impactful. On my team, we try every Friday to write out handwritten notes to anyone who, has a birthday, an anniversary. At the beginning of the year, write out home anniversary cards for everyone that I've had a sale to. I just clip them together by month, and then I send them out each month. And I think that's something that people pay attention to, because it's not routine. It's something that's kind of above and beyond, and it keeps me top of mind when they're ready to sell again, or they have a family member who wants to buy. So that's one of the things that I do. But I also send out, we send out, we just did a mailing that was, we sent $1 scratch off ticket for St. Patrick's Day to everybody in our database. You might not be able to afford to send it to everybody, but it's just a fun thing to send to, send it to your top 10 people in your database, or send it to your top 50 people in your database, just to keep costs manageable till you really have business going. But I think anything like that you can do that's just a little different, that'll make you stand out from other agents, is good. Things like the time change comes to mind, because I get so many reminder of the time change from other real estate agents that work with other brokers, that it's like, all right, I don't really need another one of those. It's a cute idea, but everybody's doing it. So I think do something like on the off times that everybody's not doing it can put you to a little bit of an advantage. Anybody have any questions so far? So while you're in Ignite, you're doing adding 10 contacts to your database, you're speaking to 10 people a day, you're writing 10 handwritten notes, and you're trying to preview 10 homes. Okay. All right, we're going to go to basically 2 different things that are covered in this session of Ignite. One is qualifying your buyer leads. And I do this with virtually every buyer. And I think it's very important for a couple of different reasons. One reason is you know if the buyer is prepared to buy. And if they're not prepared to buy, you can help them get prepared to buy. So the thing you don't want to do as an agent is be spending a lot of time taking people to see homes when they're not prepared to buy, especially in this market when most homes are going in a matter of days, not weeks. I think to do that is a disservice to your time for one thing, but it's also a disservice to them, because if they go to look at homes, they find one they like, and they find that they're really not prepared to buy, then it's a disappointment to them. And I think you owe it to your clients to set them up for as much success as you possibly can. And part of that is finding out more information about where they are in the process, a little bit about their financial situation, making sure they're pre-approved, and really like helping them to be prepared for this market, I would say. I never use the word, this is a crazy market. I always say it's a competitive market, because crazy is like, where do you go with crazy? Like crazy is just like, how do you deal with that? But if you say a competitive market and say, we have techniques to help you get your offer accepted in this competitive market, then I think that a buyer will be much more comfortable with your ability to help them find a home in a reasonable amount of time. So let's talk a little bit about the buyer appointment form. I will tell you that, so again, there's no one right way to do this. I will not tell you that I'm a person that will absolutely not go on a showing without the buyer having gone through this lead checklist with me, or without being pre-approved. I do think there's some value in, I call it a job interview. Just like any other job, you might have to put in a little time up front to get the buyer, but I think one or maybe two showings could be part of a job interview. And then you kind of get down to business with them and say, okay, if we're going to be serious about this, let's sit down and have a full buyer consultation so that I can help you as best that I can. So I'm going to share my screen here, hopefully, and show you our buyer's appointment form. It's a little bit more in depth than what is in the book as an example, although I think the example in the book is great too. So tell me if you can see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so the first thing, we're big checklist people in my team. I'm a big checklist person, of course, since I'm a CPA, I'm big on checklists. So the first thing we have at the top of our buyer's lead checklist is all of the things that we're going to do to kind of onboard that buyer as a client of ours. And I put it at the top of the page, just so if this is sitting on my desk, I can see what's done and what's not done and do my own follow-up to get there. This form is not shared with the buyer. We do this consultation usually on Zoom now. We used to do it in person in the office, but now Zoom seems to work for everybody. If they wanted to meet in person, we might meet them in person to do it, or we might do it over the phone if they are not that comfortable with Zoom. But this is something that we have in front of us when we're talking to a buyer for the first time or talking to them about their needs and wants. And it's not something that we give to them to fill out. So we're doing this as a conversation. You might jump around a little bit on it, but it's something that you can use to kind of guide yourself through the conversation to make sure you get all of the information that you're looking for, and make sure that you are allowing them time for questions as well. I'm going to plug in my phone because I see my charges going down. All right. So again, first part of this is just a checklist for us. We want to, number one, set them up in our CRM. We use Top Producer. It could be Command. We want to add them to some kind of a lead drip campaign, or they're called smart plans in command. They're already set up for you. All you have to do is add the client. We want to set ourselves up alerts to contact this client if they, and we do that all throughout the process. If they haven't set an appointment date with us yet, we'll set an alert to make sure to reach back out to them to set an appointment with us. If we've had the appointment and we've set them up on an MLS search, we set an alert to reach back to them to make sure they're seeing what they're expecting to see in the MLS search, answer questions, whatever they need. And we're setting up a buyer consultation. After the consultation, we use dot loops. So we set them up in dot loop, but it could be DocuSign. We send them the consumer notice, the buyer's agency agreement, and the buyer's financial information form. All three of those things we have filled out before we take them on showings. Now, as I said, we might take them on 1 or 2 showings, but after that, we're like, we need you to sign these forms for us so that you're prepared to make an offer. We put the buyer's consultation form in the loop so that if you're working with other teammates, they can also see the consultation form. We refer them to a loan officer if they've requested it, set them up on an MLS search. We have a folder that we give buyers the first time we meet them that is kind of an introduction to us, some information about the buying process. There's a buyer's timeline in there. There's information about, it's called the 10 commandments when you're getting a mortgage, like don't open new credit card accounts, that kind of thing. So all of that's in a folder, and also there's room in the folder for them to file things that are coming their way as they're going through the process. So once they're under contract, they can put their appraisal in the folder, they can put their agreement of sale in the folder. There's room for all of those things as they go through the process. And we just think of it as like a little gift to them. It's like, okay, we're working together. We've given you our folder. So obviously we're working together and we can proceed on. And, you know, it's not expensive. It's just a little 3-ring binder. We just print up, you know, the stuff that goes in it. We get some pockets, and that's all there is to it. Then also on our checklist is sending a thank you note to the referral source if there is one. Very important. You always want to recognize the referral source. We send a thank you, or often it's just a little email to the buyer that's like, it's great talking to you today. Really looking forward to working with you. You can look for that paperwork that I said I would be sending along shortly, you know, that sort of thing. And then we update our CRM with any notes, like had the consultation on the date, you know, that kind of thing. So in our buyer's appointment form, I always say I put the boring stuff first, because after they get into what they want in a home, it's hard to refocus them on the boring stuff. So I get the basic contact information so that I have everything I would need to prepare an agreement of sale once we get to that stage. Then we ask them a little bit about lifestyle. So, you know, why are you looking for a home now? Why is now the time? What's your time frame to move? What kind of, do you think that this is going to be a stepping stone home, or do you think of this as a long-term home? Then we get a little bit more about if they have a family who's going to be living in the home with them. Is there anybody else involved in the purchase decision? So we make sure we allow for them to come on showings if someone else is involved in the purchase decision, like a parent or something along those lines. So this whole thing kind of helps you gauge whether they're, I'm sure you've heard the ABCD buyer, helps you gauge their motivation, helps you to figure out how serious they are about purchasing a new home. You know, if they say that their rental ends in 3 months and they don't have an option to renew it, then, you know, they're probably pretty serious. If they say, well, you know, we're looking for the right thing, we're not in a super hurry, then you know, it kind of could be tomorrow, but it could be in a year. So you can kind of gauge their motivation and why they're looking through a home for a home through these questions. The next section is a little bit more financially oriented. So you want to find out if they have a mortgage pre-approval. Have they spoken to any mortgage lenders? Do they know a mortgage lender that they would use? I think it's very important to ask questions about funds for closing costs. Even a lot of lenders, although Diane is very good about having this conversation with prospective buyers, Diane Malley and her team, a lot of mortgage loan officers don't. People don't realize that they need any money for closing costs. So you definitely want to have a conversation about, do you have some funds set aside in savings that you could use for your closing costs? And if they don't know what closing costs would be, you might kind of step through the major ones with them and tell them, a ballpark of what you think they might need for closing costs. And that also can help you to determine if they're really prepared to buy or if they're going to be needing to save up a little bit more before they really start to look. So that's mostly what's here, what kind of loan they're anticipating having, if they know, and a little bit, there's also a little bit up here at the top about if they're a first-time home buyer, if they're a renter, when their lease ends, and so forth. And if they have a house to sell, also very important to know. And then we start getting into the kind of generals about what kind of home they're looking for, whether school district is important, if they have a specific commute time that they want to stay under, if there are any neighborhoods that they know of that they're particularly interested in. All of that kind of thing goes in this location section. And then we start talking about what kind of house they want. If they want a detached home versus a townhome, if they have anything about the style of house that they prefer. And when I'm going through this, I also say it's just as important for you to tell us anything that you're not interested in, just as much as anything that you are interested in, so that we can, if we can eliminate some things, then that helps us hone in on the perfect house for them. Information here on, what kind of floor plan, are they willing to do some updates on the house? Would they do? I keep having pop-ups from text coming up on my screen. So information about whether they would do minor updates like paint and carpet. What about major updates? If it needed an updated bathroom or kitchen, is that something that you would be willing to do? And again, kind of helps you know what they would be open to, so that you can not only set up your searches to look for something that they're really interested in, but also when you're seeing homes, say, you said you were only looking for minor updates. This one looks like it's a little bit more dated, that you might accept. What do you think about it? Of course, how many bedrooms and bathrooms? More specific information about rooms of the homes. Is there anything specific about a kitchen that you like or don't like? Anything specific about bathrooms that you like or don't like? Some of this information you kind of tailor to the price point. So if they're looking for, a $200,000 townhome in Delaware County, then you're not going to ask them, what about the bedroom space? Do you need walk-in closets and things like that? Because we're not likely to find that at that price point. It's possible, but not likely. So I try to tailor it to what I think we will find in the price point. So another good example is, if they're looking for a $150,000 townhome, you're not going to ask them if they need a 3-car garage, because probably just not going to be out there. So as I'm going through this, I'm always kind of keeping in mind what their budget is and what I think we could reasonably find within their budget. And then we go to a little bit about the outside of the house. Deck, do they need a deck or patio? what if the house had a shared driveway? Again, if it's $1 million home, I wouldn't ask them a question about a shared driveway because that's not likely to happen. But I do get as much information as I can. And then a little bit about lot size, what if do they want something secluded? Are they focused on privacy? Are they okay with a smaller lot that's maybe smaller maintenance? Get a feel for what kind of thing they're looking for as far as lot size. And then I always ask them if they have any questions so far. And I ask them, is there anything else that we didn't talk about? And in this conversation, I might ask them if they've had, if they're not a first-time home buyer, if they've had an experience with a realtor before. I try to ask them about that experience and find out what they liked about their previous realtor and also what they didn't like about their previous realtor. If they say, they may say something like, we liked her, but she didn't really give us a lot of suggestions. Then, that's a person that wants kind of, even though you have an MLS search set up for them, you might say, I know you're looking in these 3 school districts, but did you think about this other school district? That might have some things that would be options for you. Or you might even see things come up in the MLS search and you send it to them again and say, I just looked at this one. I see it's coming on the market. This looks like it checks a lot of your boxes. Would you be interested in going to see it? And that way they're kind of feeling like they're getting that special attention that they were missing in the realtor before. Or they might say that the realtor just didn't seem very responsive. It really kills me when I hear somebody say that because, it's our job to be responsive, especially in this market. And I just don't like to hear that somebody had a bad experience with another realtor, even if they're a low price point. I mean, we treat the $100,000 buyers just like we treat the $1 million buyers, because someday they may be $1 million buyer, or they may have a friend or a family that's $1 million buyer. So we don't think of a low end price point buyer as a less than. We give them every effort that we give the other buyers. So that's your chance to pitch one of your values, that you are very responsive. If you're a full-time agent, tell them that you're a full-time agent. Tell them if you have some kind of a conflict, you always have an arrangement with another agent that you can get them there in their time frame. And I think that things like that help ease the buyer's mind too, if they did have some kind of a negative experience with an agent before. But if they did have a negative experience or weren't wild about their previous agents, definitely something that I think you want to know so that you can address it and not make the same mistake. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Hey, Sue, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, you're walking through this questionnaire before they sign a buyer's agreement, I take it, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So tell me a little bit about your experience in that financial question. I've had some people that are in my sphere that I know reasonably well, but they're a little uncomfortable about releasing to me, somebody they know, financial information. And I would imagine you probably run into that with people that are strangers too.
Not so much. I can't say. I mean, we have had buyers that had a hesitancy. But I think I would say something like, it's important information for me to have so that I can help you the best that I can, and give them comfort that it's confidential, won't go past you. The buyer's financial information form is something that is a normal part of the offer package. So I tell them that is something that will be shared with a seller once they find a home that they want to make an offer on. And the reason is for the seller to be able to do their own due diligence about their ability to close on a home and obtain a mortgage. So I can't say I've had a whole lot of pushback. If I did have somebody in the situation you're describing, I might say, okay, let's put that one aside for now. We will need it as part of an offer, but let's find you that home first and then we'll address that. Do you think something like that would ease their mind?
Yeah, I think so. I think they're just, I'm friends, but they don't want me to know all
Yeah, and you
their
know what?
hidden
I'm
rocks.
totally 100% convinced that that's 99% of the reason that sometimes friends or family don't use you as their realtor. They just don't want to share their personal information. You don't know. But they'd rather share it with a stranger than share it with you. But I think that, as I think it's very important with people like that, to have a professional attitude with them. Like, yes, we're friends, but this is work. And maybe that will kind of help them see that there's a line there, that this is purely for professional reasons. You're not just being nosy.
That's a good point.
Does anybody else have any ideas about that?
Maybe
No?
you just maybe postpone it after they sign the buyer agency, so it will make them feel more comfortable that, now I'm your agent and you are my client and everything is confidential and nothing is gonna, go here and there. So I think maybe just the financial part, if they're not comfortable to talk about it at that point, just leave it after they sign the buyer agency.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. There's no one right way to do it. You have to be a little bit adaptable. You can have an ideal way in your mind to do it, but I think it's important to be flexible in some situations as well. Just kind of leave it be. You'll address it at a later point. I don't think that that's a bad strategy.
That's good.
A little bit about signing the buyer's agency agreement. So a lot of agents are hesitant for some reason to have the buyer sign the buyer's agency agreement. I don't exactly know why, because if you go to a lawyer, they're going to have you sign a document saying that you agree to pay for the work that they're doing. If you go to a doctor or a dentist, before they see you, they're going to take your medical card so that they know you have the ability to pay. If you engage a contractor, they're going to have you sign an agreement of what the work that they're going to do will be, and likely pay a deposit up front. So in my mind, it's no different than that. And the way I explain the documents is I start with the consumer notice and I say, this is the document that's required by the state of Pennsylvania for us to have everyone that we're working with sign. And I say, when you see the document, you'll see that the first part of the document outlines the roles of a real estate agent. And in this situation, I'm going to be your buyer's agent. I'm working exclusively for you. I'm not working for the seller or the seller's agent, and I don't share information with them that would harm you in a negotiation. And then I say the second part of that document basically says that everything in a real estate transaction is negotiable. So of course, price is negotiable, but also timeframes, inspection items, what you decide to put forth as an escrow deposit once you're under contract, all of those things are negotiable. And then when I get to the buyer's agency agreement, I say, this is I'm going to be sending you our buyer's agency agreement. In the state of Pennsylvania, in this area, typically the sellers negotiate with the listing agent what a commission will be, and that listing agent splits their commission with the buyer's agent. So you won't owe me any commission for my work, unless for some reason it's the odd situation where the seller is selling by themselves or the listing agent's not offering a commission for some reason. Tell them that's rather rare, but I would discuss it with them before we made any moves on that house. And then I say, the agency agreement really documents what I just said when we were talking about the consumer notice, that I'm your buyer's agent, I'm working for you, I'm not working for the listing agent, and I'm not going to be sharing information with them that would harm you in a negotiation. And I kind of leave it at that. I don't have pushback with people asking me to sign the buyer's agency agreement. Usually, once in a while, somebody will flag the section that talks about commissions. And I think the wording on that agency agreement is confusing. When you read it, it does say in there that it's our broker's policy to accept the commission offered by the listing agent, but it's not the first thing it says. First thing it says is you'll owe us, X% for our commission. So I do occasionally have people push back on that, and I will add wording to the agreement of sale, or to the buyer's agency agreement, making it more clear that I'm accepting the commission paid by the listing agent, or that I'm not charging the buyer for a commission. Also, once in a while, somebody will say, well, and this is a lot investor clients, they'll say, well, I do use different agents. If I buy something in Philadelphia, I may use a different agent than if I buy something in the suburbs. And I will, for those clients, usually say it's specific to a certain property. No problem. Just, put it in there, eases everybody's mind. They'll use you when they're back in the suburbs again. And, don't want to kind of step on other agents' toes. It's totally fine. I don't like working in Philadelphia anyway. So I have no problem with making a few modifications to that agreement, but we do always get the buyer's agency agreement signed. It's really, really rare that we can't come to some kind of agreement with someone to sign a buyer's agency agreement. And worst comes to worst, we just explain, hey, all of our time and costs are up front. This protects us. We don't get paid until we get someone to the settlement table. So we do want to work with people who want to work with us. So, kind of as a last resort, put it that way, but don't say that as a first resort. Does anybody have any questions about getting the buyer's agency agreement signed?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Actually, can you explain me a little more about the commissions, like how they are paid for new construction homes, or regarding, and I more information needed regarding the closing costs too. How are they? What are the closing costs for a new construction would be? More information if you can.
So new construction is kind of a totally different animal in some ways, but in other ways not. There's all different ways that a new construction can come about. The buyer could find a vacant lot and buy the lot, and then engage their own construction person to construct the home, and you might only be involved in the purchase of the lot. Could be that a buyer will buy a lot with a builder tied to it, and before they go under agreement of sale, they're going to have all of the basic terms of the construction agreed to, and then you might participate in the cost of both the lot and the construction. And then there are, new construction by the national builders that already know what home they're going to put on the lot, or, there might be an option of a couple of homes that'll go on the lot. And generally those, you also will participate in a base price for the home and the lot without upgrades. Does that answer your question on how new construction works?
Yeah, but the commissions is the buyer commissions, who's going to pay them? Like
if it's just a lot, typically the seller of the lot will pay the commission. If it's a lot with a builder, typically the builder will pay the commission.
Okay, so usually nothing. Usually the buyer won't pay any commission unless it is for sale by owner or something like that. So
typically there is one broker that I know out there called Rex. They, as a policy, don't pay buyers commission. They're not very popular in this area. I've seen them, but keep your eyes open for something like that. And if you see something like that, then you're going to have a conversation with your client that this seller is not offering a buyer's commission.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you. Thank you.
but that's the rare. That's the rare. Any other questions? Those were good questions. Okay. So then the last part of this is kind of a, as I said, as we go through this form, we're typically jumping around a little bit. You know, you're up in the bedrooms and they're talking about the lot. So just keep it conversational. Try to kind of bring them back to the questions when they kind of start to go off on their own. But we try to keep this to about an hour conversation. And then the last part of this is kind of a little bit more of an expectations conversation. We talk about the current market, that it's very, again, competitive. I don't use the word crazy. I tell them that we have techniques that are helping us to get buyers under contract, but I don't necessarily talk about that in this conversation. It's just too overwhelming to do both. And then I tell them about, you know, when they see things, we'll schedule the showings with them. We'll help them prepare offers. I ask them if they have any time restrictions for showings, so that we can kind of accommodate as much as possible. I tell them to give us as much notice as possible these days. If they can tell us on the day it comes on market and they see on the MLS and schedule it that day or the next day, that's good. Tell them a little bit about the hours that I work, that I typically shut down after 7:30 or so, unless I know something is coming that needs to be addressed that night for negotiating an offer or something like that, just to kind of set the expectation that, you know, they can't text you at 9 o'clock at night and expect you to respond. That gets pretty old after a while. And I tell them in a conflict, I can always get another agent to take them on a showing. It's a little bit easier on a team because we have agents lined up that can do that, but you can partner with other agents in the office to do that for one another. I would definitely advise that you make a couple of friends who will help you out and you'll help them out when the need comes. I also tell them a little bit about new construction, that just because it's new construction doesn't mean that they don't need an agent representing them. I tell them that the people that they'll meet when they go to new construction are marketing people who work for the builder. They're not working for the buyer. And I tell them, again, it's no cost to them to have their own representation, and they should have their own representation in new construction. And then I tell them that we're going to send them open houses. Every week we go through all of the searches that are set up in our portals, and we send them any property that's having an open house that weekend. Tell them absolutely go to open houses. Just when you sign in or introduce yourself to the agent that's holding the open house, hosting the open house, that you tell that agent that you are working with an agent, just so they kind of know that you already have an agent. And then we talk a little bit about what might happen if they see a for sale by owner or a bank-owned property. And that's basically the listing presentation, or the buyer's pre-qual questionnaire. Any questions?
Yeah.
Um,
Are these available, all these forms on command?
This is not. This is something that I've customized over the years for me. If anybody wants it, by all means, send me an email to sue@clay, CLAY -team.com. And I'll send this to you. It's a Word document, so you can customize it for yourself, and, you know, feel free to use it. And I feel like every 6 months I update it a little bit. It's constantly changing because I, go out on showings and think, I really should have asked them that question up front. So I'll add it to this form, or, there's something that's like, it's a little overkill. I'm never using that question. I'm always skipping it. So I take it off. So I always customize it to myself.
Can you repeat your, can you please repeat your email address again?
Sue, SUE, @clay, CLAY -team.com.
I have a question, please.
Yeah.
I know that the FISBO, the last thing on your presentation or questionnaire, you said that the FISBO, I know that the difference is sometimes the seller doesn't want to pay commission for the buyer's agent. But how about what's the difference in the bank owned or sheriff sale or whatever? Is there any difference in the transaction?
Yeah, can be. So bank-owned properties, you're dealing with a company instead of an individual seller. And they're the ones that have to approve the sale. Can be very streamlined, just like you're dealing with a normal seller, or can be something that, you know, this bank's process is to meet by committee and they have to vote on it and it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, I heard it's longer, but I was just asking if there's anything like different in transaction itself or commission or stuff like that.
There's likely going to be more forms if it's a bank-owned property. Sometimes it will say in the MLS that the buyer's commission isn't guaranteed. You definitely want to explore that a little bit to see, you know, what the situation there is. Sometimes they pay, you know, a normal 2.5–3% commission, and it's almost just like working with a seller. Sometimes you have to submit the offer through a portal, and they may not be PA forms. They're the bank's forms. So there can be all different things, but, you know, it's not something that you run into every day, especially these days. So I would just kind of take it as it comes. And if you need help, there would be somebody who would be able to advise you.
Thank you.
I've never done one in the 4 years I've done transactions, and, you know, many transactions a year. I've never had one. So watch now, all of you will be like, oh my God, now I have one. Anything else? Excuse me. All right, we're going to switch a little bit to open house. So Keller Williams has their 7th level open house, which you can choose to do, you know, all of the steps in level 1, 2, 3, and 4, but not 5, 6, and 7. I have kind of my own tips and tricks about open houses. And I'm just going to kind of go through the way, the things that I've learned over the years. One is definitely you want to have directional signs. You can borrow them from someone else in the office, but I do think it's valuable to have signs with your own name and cell phone number on it. I have had people doing drive-bys who call and say, are you still open? You know, what time are you going to be there to? I can't find the house. You know, where is the house? So I think that it's good to have your own signs with your name and your cell phone number on it. I also think it's a good idea to have a rider on the sign with the time that you're going to be there. So if you're going to be there Sunday 1 to 3, get riders saying Sunday 1 to 3. So Keller Williams says to get balloons. I don't use balloons. I use these things called ground wigglers. And what they are is they're pennant flags about 6 feet tall on a plastic pole. I keep them in my garage. When I'm getting ready to go to an open house, I just load them up in the car. I don't have to worry about stopping to get balloons. I can use them over and over, so they're a little bit more environmentally friendly. And they're about, or they used to be about $45 for 6. And you can order them in alternating red and white. And I find that they work for me better than balloons just because it saves time, saves costs over time. And they're make things very visible. When you're looking for open houses, so it's great to introduce yourself to other agents, experienced agents that might have listings that, you know, let's say they've got, you know, 3, 4 listings at the same time. Obviously, they don't have time to sit open houses for all of them every weekend. So good to get to know them. Good to get to know the admins. If a team has an admin, likely they're the ones that are going to be scheduling the open houses. good to post on your office's Facebook site if you're interested in sitting an open house, you know, on Monday or Tuesday. Say, does anybody have a listing that I can do an open house over the weekend? And likely an agent will reach out to you about that. So those are the best ways to get open houses if you don't have your own listings. If I'm given a choice on an open house to do, I would look for a newer listing for sure. If it's a listing that's been on the market for a while, maybe a listing that the price has just been reduced. I think that the mid to lower price points, you're likely to get more people in, although I've had other agents say that they've sat open houses for higher price points and did get business from it. So that's kind of a choice. I think a proximity to a higher traffic area is good. If it's something that is in, you know, a very secluded area of Chester County where you're not going to get many people out that way, I think that's not, maybe if you have a choice, the best. And if you have a property where there are other open houses in the neighborhood, that can be good too. And you can even kind of create that. If you take an open house as in a townhouse community or in a large neighborhood where there are other listings, you can always call the other agents and say, hey, I'm having an open house this weekend. What do you think about doing an open house too? I'll send my people over to you if you send your people over to me. And I think that that's also a good way to hold open houses, even if they're not Keller Williams agents. I think most agents are open to that kind of thing. So that's how you get them, and that's how I pick them. A few days before the open house, I think it's a good idea to call neighbors. If you like to do customizable flyers with your contact information on it, weather's getting better, you know, nice to spend a day out on a Friday, just putting flyers on the doors of the neighbors. Lenders often will help you with flyers. I know Diane Malley's team will help you with flyers if you ask her. She'll do them free of charge. I think social media posts are good. Facebook is free. You don't even have to boost the post, but for about $20, you can boost the post. So that's for advertising part of it in advance. You also want to make sure that you've talked to the listing agent to find out if there's anything unique about the home that you should know. Maybe ask a little about the property lines, because often people will say, so where's the property go back to? Does it go back to that oak tree or what? And it's good to know that information. Ask the listing agent if there's any, you know, unique features that you should really be talking up. That can be very helpful in an open house for you to seem like an expert. Make sure you know how to get access to the home. Make sure you've got the lockbox combination. Good to know things about the surrounding area, like where the nearest grocery store is, where the nearest Wawa is, how far is the elementary school. All of those things are good to know because people will ask about all of those things. If it's possible, I think it's good to put your signs out in advance. Many townships don't allow it to be out the day before the actual open house, but if the township does allow it, you can try to do that. So the day of, give yourself plenty of time to set up your signs. You're going to want to have about 10 signs, especially if it's a neighborhood that you have to kind of wind your way back to. You want to have enough directional signs that people can find you. If you're putting a sign in a neighbor's lawn, absolutely knock on their door and ask them if it's okay. Just tell them you're doing an open house for the neighbor. Is it okay if you put a sign on their lawn just for a couple of hours? You'll pick it up right after the open house is over. And most people are super friendly. If the neighbor's not home, which tends to happen a lot more in the summer, people are just out, I do have a little pre-printed note that I put on their door with one of my business cards just saying, you weren't home. I wanted to make sure it was okay. I put the sign in your yard. If you have any problems, just give me a call, or questions, just give me a call. And that way, you're kind of like informing them, but you put the sign there without asking permission. And I never had anybody call me and say they don't like it. And if I pick the sign up and see the note still in the door, I go get the note and take it back. They never even knew I was there. So when you get to the house, take a walk through, make sure any electronics or jewelry are put away. You don't want people to be walking through the house with, somebody's iPad sitting out. I do a little light staging, like make sure all the lights are on, make sure all the toilet seats are down, make sure, towels are in place, make sure there's not like clothes on the floor. I've even wiped down the countertops for kitchens if I had to. So, give yourself enough time to kind of give the house a little bit of a once over. And something that I do is I will, to induce people to give me their contact information, I'll set out a sign-up sheet, and I have a little plexi holder that I'm having a drawing for a gift card. And I give away like a $20 Wawa gift card. And this is something that another agent taught to me one time, but he said, and this is what I do, if I get 2 people that I think are pretty good leads, I might give away 2 gift cards. If I don't get anybody on that one that I think is a good lead, everybody says that they're already working with an agent, then maybe that one nobody gets a gift card. But it's a way to call the people after the open house and say, hey, you were like the winner of my Wawa gift card. And people are like, oh my God, I love Wawa. And, it's just kind of one convert, that's one touch. And then you can call them about a week later saying, hey, I just wanted to make sure you got my Wawa gift card. And, it's kind of a way to reach back to them without saying, do you want to be my buyer? Can I come and look at your house and give you an evaluation? It's a more natural way to open the conversation. You can work your way into that through the conversation, but who doesn't like a Wawa gift card? So I think if you get a good lead, that might be a nice thing for you to incorporate into your open houses. Not sure it's 100% legal, but it does work. So then I also have flyers to, I have the MLS listing, copies of it. I have my business card clipped to it for people to take with them. I also have a trifold marketing brochure. This is what it looks like. And it's some information about buying the home. And there's all kinds of information about, the home buying process, the mortgage process, the closing process. And of course, it has my contact information on it. And this is something that's nice to be able to give to a potential client that comes through the home. Looks very professional. It's on glossy paper. I did it through Vistaprint. They're not super expensive, but I think that it's just a nice thing that you can give them to take with them. But for substitute for that, you can just do a copy of the MLS for the home listing and clip your business card to it. And that way they have your contact information as well. When somebody comes to the house, the first thing I do is I ask them how they found out about the open house. That can definitely help you gauge where they are in the process. If they say, my real estate agent sent me, then you know that they're probably not somebody that you want to focus a whole lot of time on. You just ask them who's their agent, take a note, and then answer any questions that they have. If they said, saw it on Zillow or Realtor.com or Redfin, then maybe that's somebody that you want to focus a little bit more time on. They are obviously looking. They may be in the very, very early stages of looking, not really ready to buy, but they're at least taking the step that they have a search set up and they're looking. And then if they say that they they saw the sign, then you might want to dig a little bit deeper. Do you live in the neighborhood? Oh yeah, I'm just a neighbor. I just wanted to see it. Always wanted to know what the inside of this house looked like. Or they might say, well, we passed by on our way to church. We've kind of been looking in this area, just thinking about it. And again, that's somebody that you might want to focus a little bit more on. But asking them how they found out about the open house, I think, is a good way to gauge interest. And then when they come in, after I ask them how they found out about the open house, I give them 3 pieces of information. I tell them the square footage of the house, how many bedrooms it has, and how many bathrooms it has. And then I tell them to take their time looking around. If they have any questions, by all means, ask me. And then I kind of leave them alone. I usually put my sign-up sheet in the kitchen area. And when I will say, my sign-up sheet's in the kitchen. If you wouldn't mind giving me your contact information while you're there, I'd appreciate it. And then I try to keep like one eye to see if they're in the kitchen. I might remind them if I see that they haven't signed up yet. I think it's important to be as chatty as possible with people when they're holding an open house. Like that's how you connect with people at an open house. Ask them, do they know anything about the school district? Have they looked in this area? How long have they been looking? Anything that you can think of to keep the conversation started and get some good information, I think is a good way to do it. And I always, as soon as I'm done talking to a person, I go over to my notebook and I write down as many things as I can remember about what they told me. And I also have my sign-in sheet numbered so that when I write down my notes, I can correlate it to the number on the sign-up sheet so I know who was who. Because you think you're going to remember, but you're not going to remember if you have 10 people to an open house. So make sure that you're linking the contact information with the notes so that when you follow up with them, you remember who they were. After an open house, if another listing agent, if it's another listing agent's listing, I always call them with feedback, how many people came, a little bit about the people that I saw, if I thought that they were interested and if I was going to follow up on them. If they said they worked with another agent, I'll give them the other agent's contact information. For as many people as you did get good contact information for, send them a note or a text or an email. Can be a note through mail, can be a quick text. Thank you for coming to my open house. Really nice seeing you today. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up. Or that can be an email. Then you definitely want to follow up a few days later with offers to assist them. And that's when you kind of go back to your notes. I know you said you were looking in the school district. I took a look. There's other homes that might be interesting to you. Can I help you with any of those, show you any of those? And I also, if I add them to an MLS search, I'll just set up a quick search based on what they told me, start sending it out to them. They can always unsubscribe from it if they don't appreciate it, but I have had good luck keeping in contact with people just by taking that step to just go ahead and set up an MLS search if they're not working with another agent. And then you want to put them on some kind of a drip campaign, so some kind of a smart plan through Command or whatever CRM you're using. And then make sure to schedule yourself tasks to follow up with them so that you don't kind of lose track of them. And, for me, it was practice, practice, practice. I told you at the beginning, I didn't come from a sales background. It was something I learned. I'll tell you a story about one of the first open houses that I did. I was sitting this open house for this home that was a high-end home. This guy came in and he said that he lived on the street that backed up to it, which was also a high-end home. And he asked me, he said, I saw that you worked for Keller Williams. He said, do you happen to know? And he said this other agent's name, who I didn't happen to know, but he said, she sold his neighbor's house very quickly and for over asking price. And he had had his home on the market, but he didn't like his agent. He didn't think that they were, he didn't think his agent was working with other agents as a team. And he wanted to get to know this other agent to potentially put his house on the market. And me being brand new, I did not stick up for myself at all. I didn't say, well, I would like to, I'd like you to interview me. Let's talk about it. Maybe I would be a good fit to be your agent. I was totally clueless. I did absolutely nothing. I gave him the name of the other agent. I found the person who sold that other house. He had the address, gave him the contact information, and I completely let this guy go. He was handed to me, literally, and I completely let it go. And you know what? It was a learning opportunity. You're not going to do the right thing all the time, but by practicing, you'll get better at it. And after that, I knew that I made a mistake. And I thought, if that ever happens to me again, I will not let him go that easily. I will stick up for myself. And, it'll be a better outcome the next time. And sometimes, just making a mistake is a learning opportunity, and it's gives you a chance to think about what you'll do the next time. So I don't always do things right either, but if you learn from your mistakes, that's a positive outcome. Anybody have any questions about open houses? All right, guys. Well, I really appreciate everybody logging in. If nobody has any other questions, I'm going to let you go.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You. Oh my God.